Okonkwo, O'Connor, O'Connell. Okay, we're back with Dragonheart with Final Whistle Weekly. Sorry, mustn't mention dragons anymore. Sorry, totally forgot about that. Exciting time, of course, for Wrexham. Wrexham are sponsored now by MetaQuest. They've given me a headset. And, oh, man, it's unbelievable. I'm in this mad fantasy world where Wrexham are second in League One and we're owned by these fantastic superstars. We go on tour to America every... it's not working. That's reality now, isn't it, everybody? Isn't that beautiful? I don't know. We know what Wrexham, of course, defence is going to go for at Halloween. They're going to be dressed up as ghosts, I assume, because they're collecting all those clean sheets. Either that or there's incontinence loose in Collier's Park. Who knows? But anyway, enough of this rubbish. I am Mark Griffiths. I can't help that. It's just the way I am. And, of course, the other four musketeers, we've got Neil, Captain Whitchurch Williams, who's going to spit his drink out when he realises he can't use that MetaQuest head visor because you need electricity. We've got Chay and Bill Long, sorry, Chay, the cheeky girls at Wrexham AFC. We don't know where one ends and the other begins. And then, of course, Andy Howling Dog Parkinson, who did all the screaming after that goal against Dover, and I got the blame for it. So it's bang out of order. So, hello, everybody. How are you all doing?
Very well.
Well, one of you will speak to me after those intros.
Very good. Very good. The town's rocking. We're doing pretty well. How is everyone else? I'd like to see everyone, in fact, especially you, Neil, and Andy. Well, I saw you yesterday, Andy, in the game, but I haven't seen you. I haven't had a good chat with you in a while.
Yes, it was good to see Chay yesterday.
And of course,
nice
Bill.
To see Andy briefly. Neil, how are you?
Yeah, I'm good, thank you. Yeah, again at the game last night, saw Mark, so I don't really need to say hello to Mark. So, but he's quite pleasant last night for a change, so it was all right.
I was all kinds of supportive, wasn't I? But. And Bill, of course, tragically, you lost an arm in a laundry incident.
Yes, allegedly. I'd like to hear more about this. He's
always the last to know, isn't he? Well, I think we can crack on first by looking at how we're doing, the men's team first. I mean, gosh, we've got to be happy with how things are, haven't we?
Yeah, it's really impressive, isn't it? It was only 0-0 last night, but the way they played was just unbelievable. I thought they were really impressive last night.
Two strong teams, wasn't it? Two excellent defences. I enjoyed that game. But yeah, everyone was talking about consolidation this season, naming no names. Chay. So you must be delighted to be second in the table.
I can't quite believe what I'm watching at times this season. We've really upped the gear. I mean, we've of course we've made additions and people have left, but we've kept the same core as what we've had for a couple of seasons now, and I think that's what's so impressive to me is those new additions have come in and really round us up to that next level, and we are second. Yes, it isn't. We are only 12 games in, but the fact of the matter, we've taken 4 points from Rotherham and Huddersfield, two sides who were in the Championship. Last season, Bill, it's just dream world, isn't it, for us, really?
Yeah, it's incredible. I mean, I think the only team to obviously we lost to Stevenage, but the only team to really punish us have been Birmingham. And when you see the level of money that they're spending, kind of like even blows us out of the water, and they're the only team that have really done anything that makes you scratch your head about the side. It's a great time to be a Wrexham fan. I mean, what's the we're probably what near halfway to safety. I think it's fair to say, and it's no, that sounds negative. I don't mean it like that. I think it would have been fair if you were the type of person at the start of the season that was pinpointing what is the amount for safety, and then we'll build from there. But I think we're going to fly past that, Neil, aren't we?
Oh yeah, it's been a phenomenal season so far. Yeah, we've lost a couple of games, but watching them at the racecourse recently has just been sublime. The way they've played, the way they've passed the ball, the way they've passed it through the opposition defence and the midfield and scored on the counter-attack has been absolutely sublime to watch. Yeah, last night was totally different. Huddersfield set up basically like we set up as our team was. So it was a bit of a stalemate last night, but it was a very entertaining 0-0 draw. We've lost a couple of strikers, which is a shame. And Mullin's still not fully fit, as you can see in the last couple of games. And when he's on fire again, I think we'll surge even more again. I think it's going to be a good season again, guys.
But I think the thing that's impressive about bringing Andy.
He's talking about bringing in another striker as well, isn't he? Which would be
and
interesting.
He may well have done that by the time this comes out because he needs to act quickly, I would say. You got Mullin, who is, working himself to the bone. But those last two games, he's chasing lost causes. He looked shattered at Rotherham, and he kept going. We need some relief for him. Palmer hasn't finished 90 minutes this season because we use him as a battering ram. That's the longest he's lasted all season, 82 minutes against Huddersfield. So we need more than just Mo Farah's backup. You could play Ashfield up front, you could play Lee or McLean up front, but I think he'd prefer to have a specialist sort of battering ram player to replace Fletcher. And it'll be interesting to see what he can, if he can summon anything up. But apart from that, our squad depth is ludicrous, isn't it? The quality of players who can't get into our team is just mad.
Yeah, I was thinking last night watching Lee. Lee used to be our best player by huge amounts, and he hasn't gone downhill at all. He's still a really good player, but he's surrounded by really good players now.
Yeah, absolutely.
Well, I think if we're going to talk generally about the season, there's only one man that's really took all the headlines for Wrexham, and that's Ryan Barnett, isn't it? Mark, it's completely outstanding the levels he's grown to, isn't it? This season, it's been incredible.
He's brilliant, isn't he? He is absolutely astounding. That performance against Northampton was amazing, but he's been consistent. And I've no doubt that Parkinson, previously has tended to rotate his wing backs. And I've no doubt that Luke Bolton, I know he's been injured, but would have been in the frame, and Seb Raven would have been in the frame to rotate with Barnett. But he just can't rotate him because he's just constantly delivering terrific service. And when you look at him, he's getting more and more confident, more and more little step overs and things like that. He actually did an elastica at Rotherham. I've never seen a Wrexham player try that. It was astonishing. And then he's got that ability. Apart from the fact he's got the pace to surge past somebody, he's also got the ability to just rip in across, just give himself a foot, just to give himself a target and rip that ball in there. And the quality of his balls then are fantastic. And we had warnings at Northampton game before because the game at Stevenage, he put a lot of good crosses in and there wasn't enough movement, I didn't think, in the box to capitalise upon it. But then against Northampton, of course, there was. But he's been fantastic, isn't he? Absolutely phenomenal.
I agree.
Yeah, I got to say that I'll be completely honest. Not that I ever thought he was a bad player, but there was times when in the past when people have raved about him, and I've been curious as to whether he deserved the plaudits. It's going to sound incredibly harsh because I'm really splitting hairs there with it, but he's just stepped up not just another level, he stepped up another couple of levels, isn't he? And maybe it's that kind of like Neil Taylor effect where he's gone up the divisions and he's starting to look more quality because he's coming up against opposition that aren't just looking to break his legs.
What I like about him as well. Sorry, what I like about him, he'll take on the defence. He's not one of these who'll turn and pass the ball back to safety. He's an exciting player. To think where he's come from, at Solihull when we brought him in, and as Bill said, he's just grown with us each season. He's got better and better each season, and this year he's just gone up another level again. And his crosses in the box is superb, and he's every defender's nightmare, isn't he?
Yeah, he's also something. He's getting a lot of credit for his attacking play. Quite right. I had little misgivings at first when he came to us about whether he'd be so solid on the defensive side. And there were occasions that the thing that he got caught out for sometimes was trying to run the ball out for a throw-in when he didn't need to, and strong strikers would nick it from him. Now, I think defensively he's extremely good. He made a terrific covering header in the second half yesterday as well. He's really solid. You don't see people getting on top of him at all when he's defending. So huge credit to him for that. And the other player I'd like to talk about is George Dobson. Now, I'm in love with George Dobson. And any of you who aren't, I need your explanations in writing on my desk in the morning. But I love the way the fans all love him. He does little tidying up things in midfield. It's nothing flashy. It's important, but it's nothing flashy. And everyone's clapping. Everyone's applauding it and loving it. He's a class act, Dobson, isn't he?
Yeah, without any doubt. And I just like his movement as well. He always seems to be in the right place at the right time.
Yeah, when we got the ball at the back, you can watch it. He's constantly moving side to side, just finding those pockets so he's available. Absolutely.
It feels harsh to say it against George Evans, doesn't it? But he's probably the best centre defensive midfielder that we've had since, would it be fair to say, Darren Ferguson? I know we've only had him for a short amount of time, but
Keats would come into that as well, I think, wouldn't he?
I think prime Keats, but maybe when he was at us, he had enough injuries and periods. He was coming towards the sort of end of his career, wasn't he? I love Keats. Keats is probably my favourite player of the conference era, so don't get me wrong, but I just think Dobson's incredible, isn't he, Chay?
Bill Long slams Keats. Sorry, just thinking out loud.
He's probably been my favourite player this season. He's not had a bad game. I think last night, personally, I thought he was man of the match. He probably could. There's an argument for him to be man of the match every time he played this season, which I think says a lot. And I think he's been near on perfect. What a signing! Unfortunately, another player I want to talk about. Unfortunately, he's been injured, but Max Cleworth as well. And we missed him for the last couple of days. Well, the back three have been fantastic, no matter what combination we've played so far this season. But Max Cleworth, I think, if we're going to talk about players in general this season, he definitely deserves a shout.
Another player that has grown as we've gone up the leagues. He's been superb, and to add to his defensive skills, he scored a couple of goals, vital goals this season, which is great to see. It's great to see a defender get up there and score goals. But yes, it's a shame he's picked up an injury. But speaking to him last night after the game, he was on the way out of the car park when I was leaving, and he's near back to training. So hopefully it won't be too long. But yeah, he's very impressive for a young lad. And my big worry is, one of the big clubs that come in and take him. What are your thoughts on that, Mark?
I'm not worried about that. I know people are worried about Barnes as well. But I mean, the fact is, I was saying in the commentary last night that it's so different from the days when Paul Carden and Anthony Barry signed for us. And then because they suddenly get tapped up by a different club, we just let them go for nothing because we're not really in a position to keep hold of an unhappy player and spend a wage on him. Now, if somebody comes in for Cleworth or Barnes, we'll say, okay, well, if you got 7 figures in cash, then we'll start talking. We're in that lovely position, aren't we, to be able to do that. So I don't feel too worried about it. And if we do, we're going to get a hell of a fee for either of them. But as well, I mean, this adventure we're going on, the players want to be part of it, don't they? So I think we're safer than probably any other club in our division except Birmingham in terms of player satisfaction, because they're having the time of their lives. They're flying off to the States and wherever every summer. They're hero worshipped. There's not a lot of sort of push factors to make them want to go somewhere else, are there? To be honest.
Well, why would you want to go from us to someone like Stoke? And I mean that with the greatest respect, because Stoke are a huge club. It's not a criticism of them, but you can go and play in a middle of the road championship team, or stick about with us, and you might be a middle of the road championship team in a year or two's time, with all the benefits that come with playing for us.
Yeah, and also, I think Okonkwo's a good example, isn't he? Supposedly, championship teams are sniffing around him, but they'd have him as backup, wouldn't they? He'd be starting again. Yeah. Whereas with us, he gets a chance if he plays well this season. He's got a good chance of being in the championship next year. So, yeah, there's a lot of reasons to stick with us, aren't there?
I think so. Even if you went to sort of Liverpool, one of the really top sides, you're not going to be first team straight off. So you're going to be playing a lot of reserve football. Or do you want to be in front of 13,000 fans every week? All very passionate. I know which one I'd choose.
exactly. And they get to hang around with, well, all sorts of mega celebrities. What a thing that is, eh? The women's team has had a much stickier start to the season. They're playing well, apart from Matt Britton-Ferry, but losing and not taking chances is the issue. Even winning 11-0 on Sunday, could have scored 20, in all honesty. So what do you do in that situation when your team's playing well but not getting those results? Is it a case of being patient, or what's the wise thing to do when you're playing Football Manager 2024? What do you do? Chop and change or keep faith?
I think that squad and Steve Dale have earned enough credit in the bank for a bit of patience, haven't they?
Mm.
You don't get. I know everyone will always bang on about our money, but you don't go up in the fashion that you have to in the women's leagues through winning the league and then winning a playoff on top of winning the league, which is just mental. And then coming in the getting into that top four area in the way that the women's league works to just go and get rid of him. I don't think it would be right. I think he's earned enough time to carry on cracking at it, and the squad's proven that they're good enough. So let's just hope a few people kick into form.
Yeah, exactly, and maybe winning heavily without that. Sorry, go on.
Well, I think they've been a bit unfortunate as well. I think the Swansea game was close. It was a close game.
Yeah.
The Britton-Ferry game, I kind of had a feeling that we were going to go into that losing. It's such a close game. The playoff game was so close. You could tell Britton-Ferry had a lot of fire in their belly and wants to really stick it at Wrexham. And, they're obviously a quality side. They're doing extremely well this season. They're top of the league. It's not gone Cardiff or Swansea's way so far this season either. I think just a little bit of patience when it comes to the women's team so far this season. It's kind of how I expect us to start last season, but we did really well. I think it will click. If you're playing well, at some point it will click. But of course, the results do need to start coming in soon as well.
Yeah, absolutely. I don't know, Neil, when you're lacking confidence and things aren't going in, an 11-0 win against anybody is a positive. And this Sunday, and I'm not taking this for granted, but Cardiff Met do seem to be massively struggling. They've let a lot of goals in. We're at home to them. It just feels like a bit of an opportunity to build on the 11-0 with another good win and maybe hopefully get players going.
Yeah, I mean, the 11-0 will do the world of good for them, confidence-wise. Be able to, they know where the back of the net is again. That's a big, big factor in football when you score goals. It gives you that confidence. I mean, you've got to remember they've had, 3 big, tough away games, really, haven't they? Well, with Swansea and Britton-Ferry. I think is the only Aberystwyth they've played who they've beaten so far this season.
Yeah, in the league. Yeah, we won at Aberystwyth 3-1. And we lost to Barry, where we totally dominated it, just couldn't score, and then they got one on the corner.
So, they've played the big teams, and I think, it can only get better. Steve's, as Chay said, has done a fantastic job, and Bill said, he's done a fantastic job with the women's team, and, giving credit where credit is due. Things will turn around, especially after last Sunday's winning the cup. So I'd give him far more time, and, the team are growing confidence, hopefully another win on Sunday, and then they just take another step from there and just take each game as it comes.
Yeah, absolutely so. And then looking forward to the men's team at the weekend, of course, Charlton Athletic away. This is what I've been really looking forward to. Never been to Charlton. We haven't played them since 1982. I wasn't born then. But, it's just fun to be playing a team like that as well, who, spent a lot of time in the Premier League.
Yeah, big ground.
They've only ever
way falling there, so it'll be another good atmosphere for you there, Mark.
Only one season in their history have they been below us. That's my fab fact.
Wow!
So that's a big game for us, isn't it? Really?
Yeah, huge. I mean, I was looking
as well.
Sorry, they beat Birmingham
recently as well. Yeah, so they're obviously a quality side.
Yeah.
I was looking earlier, and if you start from the Rotherham game, 5 of our matches, so if you start from the Rotherham game and you take the next 7 matches, 5 of those games are against teams in the top 11.
Yeah.
2 of them are against teams that were in the Championship last year, and another 2 are against teams that came up with us from League Two. So this is a potential run of death, and we've started it with 4 points. We go and get a positive result at Charlton. Oh, and 3 of the games are away as well, but with two cup games sandwiched in between. So if we can get a result, even if it's just a point against Charlton, that gives us a real sort of platform to build on in that run of tough fixtures, doesn't it?
It's
then got Mansfield at home, and then Stockport away.
Yeah. And,
that's a good point there. I think a point away at Charlton would be a really good result. Bearing in mind it's going to be really hostile. They've sold a lot of tickets. Is 20,000 there or something along those lines? Considering, these League One clubs do not care about Wrexham and what have you. They seem to like to sign out their home and away crowds, don't they, to come watch us. It's going to be hostile. They're a big club. They're a good side. They beat Birmingham. I think if we can avoid losing, of course, Parky and the team won't be thinking like this. But if we can just, nick a point, I think away from home, Neil, I think that would be a really good result.
Oh yeah, it'd be a fantastic result away from home. You say Charlton beat Birmingham, they drew away last night 2-2. So that they've got some pretty good form going with them at the moment as well. And every time Wrexham goes anywhere, as you said, the crowds turn up for both sets of supporters, whatever the draw is, and it will be a hostile place. We're going down to London, it'll be a tough game, really tough game. But I'd be more than happy with the points. And I'd be elated if we can come away from there with 3 points.
Yeah, they've been in good form lately. George Dobson going back to his old club. Elliot Lee going back to his dad's old club. Phil Parkinson going back to his old club. Loads of links and different things like that. And the problems they've been through on the pitch are similar to the problems we've had. So I was able to speak to Sam White of the Charlton Athletic Supporters Trust to get a bit of an insight into how they're going this season and what we can expect on Saturday. Sam, thank you so much for joining us. And I've just been telling you before we started this, I was looking at the Charlton Athletic Supporters Trust's website, and your story and what you've been through and what you've achieved really, really resonates with the Wrexham fan. Do you want to give a little description of the problems there have been? Obviously, you can't go into full description because it's ludicrously long-winded, and what you've had to do to help save your club.
No, thanks for having me. Obviously, it's good to be here. Yeah, I mean, I've only been on the Supporters Trust board for 2 years, but I think it's always been sort of ingrained since, I think, the inception back in 2012. That it's been involved in so much Charlton kind of history, or at least the local kind of area and the history recently, and just the absolute crap that has gone on probably since about 2014, I would say, since Roland de Châtelet bought the club, and the the terrible times that have happened since.
And you've really, I mean, the Supporters Trust has been very proactive, it seems to me, in terms of, well, essentially keeping the owners, to account, if you will, speaking truth to power. You've been able to really consistently, either force the owners to do the right thing or call them out on it. And I think that's been a bit like the Wrexham Trust was in terms of when we had owners we weren't happy with, or potential buyers we weren't happy with, able to shape that agenda until it gets to a point where hopefully it comes to a positive resolution.
Yeah, I think we're really lucky because the Supporters Trust board and just general football kind of fan base and in general football world, but the board has got so much knowledge and experience that you kind of almost don't expect it to have that high level of amazing kind of detail. And I don't include myself in that whatsoever. I really don't. But when you look at, some of the guys that we've got on the board, high level marketing, you know, £1 million kind of entrepreneur startups, and you know, one guy has worked in football for ages, and you kind of go, oh, well, why are you only just joining the Supporters Trust board now? Oh, I've just retired. Yeah. You kind of think, oh, you know, where were you maybe 5 years ago? But like I say, it's been really good to kind of see how it's gone from strength to strength on the basis of having that kind of that depth of knowledge and experience. And I think, thankfully, if owners haven't listened, we've been able to shout maybe a little bit louder, or we've been able to kind of, get around the back, shall we say.
Yeah. And I mean, sadly, and again, like us, your problems didn't just suddenly appear. There were problems, I mean, earlier, getting kicked out of the Valley, for example, which, I mean, goodness me, people don't realise in the 40s and 50s was the biggest football stadium in Britain. Being removed from there, having to play at Selhurst Park, and then managing against all odds to get back to the Valley. You know, the clubs had been dogged by these problems for quite a long time, and despite that, has still, you know, done well. The Kirbyshe Lee years, for example, you know, it's a great story of fans just persisting and not accepting that their club's going to die.
Yeah, I think every football club fan seems to think that their club's special, and every club is of course special and it's different, and you know, no two clubs are alike. But I think the thing that makes Charlton just that little bit different is that you have got all of that kind of tumultuous time going on in the background, and you could just sit there and say, oh, well, you know, we'll just go to the game, we'll support the team. But I think it's the history and the background behind it that you're not just supporting the team, you're trying to help pay for transfers, you're trying to win votes to get a newly elected party back into government, or into a government, to try and get your fans back in your home grounds. And as you say, we've gone from 75,000 capacity to zero, really, and not having your own ground. And in the same decade, getting promoted to the Premier League. It's madness, absolute madness. And obviously, as I say, every club is different, every club is special, but there is something just a little bit different about Charlton.
Absolutely. And I did recognise that as well with us as well. We were owned by the Trust for quite a long time. The Trust definitely saved the club, no question about that. If it wasn't for the Trust, the club would be gone now. And as well, you know, the first problems that we had with owners massively politicised the fan base, which was great because we walked straight into more problems, and to have a fan base that was battle hardened and was eager and knew how to campaign was crucial. And like you say, when you're talking about the caliber of people you've got, and me reading back this history of your Supporters Trust, you can see that's exactly it. You realise just how much knowledge there is in a fan base when you really have to fall back on them, and that's why fans are football, isn't it? It's a reflection of a community. And
totally. And I think, sorry, just carrying on from that, it is the community that I guess you do all kind of come from the same background with, to an extent. You're all from Southeast London, or you're all from the sort of the same town, like Wrexham, as you know. And you kind of just expect everyone to be the same, because in theory, we're all the same Charlton fan, we're all Wrexham fans, whatever. But you never kind of scratch that little bit off the surface and kind of go, oh, well, he brings this and she brings that. And it works so harmoniously. It's really amazing. And obviously, like the Wrexham Supporters Trust, if you can keep things just kind of on a level playing field, when so much is going wrong, anything above that is just so amazing and so special. And obviously, we've had that with the Premier League years. And I think you're coming back to your glory days, really, aren't you?
It certainly feels that way. It's happened. Well, what's happened with us has been just ludicrous, and all those problems that we had made me deeply cynical of any model apart from fan ownership, if I'm honest, because I felt, at least with the trust, even if we didn't have the budget that we could have with investment, at least we knew we'd have a club in the morning. And I was happy with that, if I'm honest with you. But yeah, what's happening now to get the dream owners, to be honest, because like I said, I'm naturally cynical because of all of what we've gone through. And when I heard that we're thinking of selling up, I was horrified. And then I saw who it was, and I realised, oh, actually, this is a no-brainer. This is they are fabulous for Wrexham the place and Wrexham the club. It's astounding, and we're so lucky. But pinching ourselves all the time.
The cynicism behind it as well, because we've got that child. It's so ingrained almost. And it's funny because we're the supporters trust with one of the owners, and they just kind of said, but why are you so kind of not negative, but why are you so cynical towards Charlton? And it's because so many times the rug has been pulled from underneath you, or something's gone wrong. You almost expect it. It's funny, last night's result against Barnsley, 2-1 up, didn't deserve it. 2-1 up with 2 minutes to go, and the amount of fans that were going, we've got 2 minutes, it's all going to go pear-shaped. It did. But because you have to expect it, and I think it's kind of that you're coming from an angle that I guess you prepare for the worst and hope it doesn't come. But
anyway. Well, we've been fortunate to sort of shed that. We always had those feelings. I think they're common feelings among football fans as well, aren't they? Something's going to go wrong now, and it's been lovely to have a team with momentum where you start thinking, "Oh, we'll be all right now." Yeah, it's fabulous. I don't understand. I'm sounding awful here, rubbing everyone's noses in it, but we're having fun. We really are having fun.
But that's what it's about, isn't it? That's what it's about. And I think, annoyingly, the only thing Charlton have been consistent at is being inconsistent. And so to be able to watch fans like yourself, it's a little bit of jealousy, isn't it? As much as annoying as it is, everyone wishes their club kind of had the TV shows that and the coverage that Wrexham have, or the millions that Birmingham have spent, or you know.
Yeah, exactly. It is interesting for me though, because you look online, which isn't really an indication of a cross section of everyone, is it? And you'll get loads of jealousy and nasty comments. But I've never come across somebody who talks like that when I actually speak to them. Most people,
because you kind of online, it's an anonymous kind of face, isn't it? Whereas if you get face to face with someone from Wrexham, you can see the hardship someone's gone through, or the love for their club, and you kind of have to take your hat off and kind of go, just enjoy it. Just go and enjoy it. Yeah, you jammy gits, whatever. But enjoy it.
Yeah, exactly.
Because unfortunately, these things don't tend to last. I don't want to jinx it for anyone, but you never know what's around the corner, and unfortunately, you know that as well as anyone.
Oh, absolutely right. Absolutely right. Yeah. But it's fun. It is fun. What can we expect from Charlton on Saturday, do you think, then? I mean, you've had fair play. You've beaten Birmingham. We certainly didn't do that. You got a good draw against Stockport, didn't you? Barnsley away, you've nearly won it. Look like after a little, was it 3 games in a row you lost? You seem to have got over that little blip, and you're only 1 point off the playoffs. If we'd finished off Huddersfield, you'd have been above them. And they're 6th now. So you're right,
I think the real issue this season is that we lack goals. And that was ironically the totally opposite last season, but we were almost kind of fighting relegation. This season, we, as you say, we're 1 point off playoffs, and I would say we struggled to score 2 goals in a game. But what can you expect? Hopefully, a hard-working team, probably no thrills, no real excitement, but hardworking, and at home, that if the atmosphere is there, which hopefully it will be on Saturday, it really G's them up, and it really gets them going. And hopefully, like I say, a positive performance. That's what happened against Birmingham. You know, we always almost kind of defend until you kind of have that minute of like, oh, we can attack now, and you go and do it, and obviously we scored, and then you're back on defending duty again. I fully expect that to be the case Saturday, but I think it'll be a really good game. I think you've sold out. We're pretty close, I think, to selling out. My head tells me that's because Wrexham are in town and Ryan Reynolds might be there. My heart tells me it's because everyone wants to come and see Charlton. But
exactly,
we'll see. And obviously, sorry.
Ignore the Wrexham fans, who I guarantee will be singing "You only here for the Wrexham match." I promise.
Got it already. Yeah.
Yes, but
it's already coming out.
It's and Wrexham support is loud as well. So like you said, it'll be a good atmosphere. It'll be a tremendous atmosphere.
Definitely.
A lot of us are looking forward to your game. I'm one of the people, particularly. This is my highlight of the season because we haven't played it since 1982. I've seen Charlton playing at Wrexham when I was a little kid. I saw some bizarre things in Wrexham Charlton games. I don't know if you're aware of them, but we haven't played you since. I've never been to the Valley. I've been all over the place. I can't tell you how excited I am to go to this game.
I think as well, like you say, obviously you haven't been, but from those that would have come to see Wrexham the last game in the 80s, the ground has changed. Like, I suppose like most, but dramatically to the point where it's gone from not being a Charlton home ground to being a Charlton home ground to being what it is today. You can't really compare it. It's bizarre.
And when a fan base has fought for a stadium like yours has, and like we did to stop ours getting knocked down, you get that massive connection, and that's got to build up atmosphere and sense of belonging. You know, it's exciting for me because I see so many characteristics in Charlton. Although, I accept you're a higher level club. Only here's my fab fact: only 1 year in your history have you been in a lower division than us. So you're a bigger club than us. But it's exciting to come and visit you, and it's also exciting because we're in a position to give you a game. And for me, it's fun.
And I think again, it works the same ways because obviously you have to be of a certain age to have known Wrexham's kind of heyday and glory days. Otherwise, as you say, unfortunately, they've been a non-league team or a team that have been struggling and with financial and ownership difficulties. And now you've got kind of Hollywood in town on the back of it. And as you say, the atmosphere should be amazing. But there's so many connections and links that, as you say, it's almost kind of a game that, dare I say, you aren't too worried about losing because you kind of have to admire Wrexham fans. Because they've done similar things to Charlton.
Exactly. So we've had such good relationships with clubs who've been through it, like Brighton, for example. And we've had like the Fans United days at the racecourse.
Same here.
You know, to have those sort of links. And I got to say as well, links on the pitch too. George Dobson. How do you see? I've got to tell from our point of view, we love him. We really love him. So, were you disappointed to see him go?
Charlton fans loved him as well.
Yeah.
But I think there was an element of kind of understanding that he was probably a bit of a limited player. And if you want to be getting to the Championship, he's not going to be a player that's going to play and start. He's going to give his all. But he probably is a little bit limited. And I think whilst Charlton fans loved him, didn't want to see him go, you kind of have to expect that if you're going to let him go, you're going to replace him with better. Have we done that? Not sure. But what you can't kind of misjudge is his absolute desire for any team he pulls the shirt on for. And he's doing that for you.
Oh, I got
in droves.
He hasn't looked limited for us. His passings, he really makes everything tick, and he's not getting as many yellow cards yet. The season is long. He is getting yellow cards. Don't get me wrong, but not at the pace I think he did for you. So
I think that's probably where we found him limited. Is that because he was probably having to do 3 jobs. And you guys have got a good team. And so he's there to do his job, and he's good at doing his job. And yeah, his discipline record's probably not as bad. But obviously, there's also Elliot Lee. He played for Charlton for a little while. Obviously, Dad Rob, he's at the game Saturday. Came through the Charlton Academy. I think I'm right in saying that we sold him to Newcastle in order to pay for some floodlights.
Wow.
I think I'm right in saying that.
Yeah.
I'm not sure.
The only thing I know, apparently, from that transfer was that Kevin Keegan convinced him to go to Newcastle rather than Middlesbrough because he said Newcastle was closer, which A, isn't true, and B, is such a small distance that I think it's an option to look at a map.
Yeah, I've heard that as well. Yeah. But also you've got Eoghan O'Connell.
Yeah, of course, yeah.
Who was with us for a little while. Again, bit limited. I think he, by the sounds of it, doesn't get into your team as much.
He is now.
He's back.
Well, when he came to us, we were in the National League, and he looked a cut above, massively a cut, as you'd imagine.
Yeah.
Last season, he was in and out a bit. He had some injuries, but he was, and also we had a bad start. Even though he got promoted, we had a bad start of the season. We were a bit undercooked, if I'm honest. There's loads of different reasons for it. And so we conceded quite a lot of goals at the start of the season, and he lost his place. He had a couple of niggling injuries, but in the run-in, he came back in, and he was outstanding. We play three at the back, and previously you've been using him as one of the defenders on the side. And he can come forwards, but in the run-in, we played him in the middle of the three, and he was, defending his 6-yard box. He was just and the thing that's happened, I think the main thing I suppose you would say about our team this season is that with the exception of Dobson, we brought 8 players in the summer. He's the only player who went straight into the team. And we were bringing in players to upgrade us. People like Dan Scarr, really good for Plymouth for the Championship. Players who are of a higher level. Playing for Rotherham last year, their best player.
Yeah.
And yet they've not been able to get in because he's stuck apart from Dobson with the team that got promoted. And they've been terrific. And O'Connell has been terrific. Now we shifted out wide simply because we have a young centre-back, Max Cleworth, who is brought through the club. And he's a hell of a player. He's a hell of a prospect. And unfortunately, he got a freak injury at Orient. And he's been out for a few weeks and will be out for a couple of weeks more. So O'Connell shifted to the side, and he's better in the centre of the three, I think, if I'm honest. But he's having an excellent season, to be fair to him.
Again, I think probably similar to a lot of players at Charlton, you probably end up having to do someone else's job as well as your own, or you're playing with players that possibly don't bring the best out of you. There we go.
Yeah, exactly. So, and then of course the one other person I need to mention is Phil Parkinson. Was your gaffer, wasn't he, for a bit?
Yeah.
How was he seen at Charlton?
Again, I think probably similar to Eoghan O'Connell and George Dobson. You don't hate the guy. There's nothing to hate about him. I think he probably wasn't the right guy for the job. I think, ironically, he was Alan Pardew's assistant manager. Alan Pardew then gets sacked, and Parkinson comes in, obviously takes over as caretaker. I think he must be one of the only caretaker managers to have lost every game. I think it was about 7 games, and then be promoted to first team manager because he's done such a great job. It's so weird. So he did pretty poor in his caretaker role, got the job. But I think at the same time, it was a time where there wasn't finances, there wasn't investment. And I remember hearing the story that, he was paying for training equipment out of his own pocket. And obviously it kept the club ticking over. And then ownership kind of troubles did get put to the side for a few years when we did have some investment come in. And he lost his job and lost it to Chris Powell, who then the next season won the league, 103 points, and did ever so well. But obviously Parkinson kind of went as a bit of a journeyman kind of manager, and then obviously found himself at Wrexham.
Yeah, he got you in the playoffs as well, didn't he? So he did achieve some things as well. Fair play. We worship him because he's actually come in and been sensible with the money, which, as you know, you see teams get lots of investments, and often the first manager fails because they're just splashing money around. And Parkinson's hit rate in the transfer market has been remarkably good. There's barely anyone who's come to the club who hasn't then given a lot to the club. He's done a remarkable job for us, I've got to say. So,
brilliant. Yeah, I mean, is Les Reed still with you?
Say again.
Is Les Reed still with you?
Yeah, of course. Yes, Les Reed. Yes,
another Charlton connection.
Always advisory role rather than hands-on. Although no, that's not true. I think it's very important in the early stages because the owners were very, very smart of them. Were immediately humble and said, "We don't know anything about football. We're not pretending we do, but we know how to run a business, and we're bringing good people in to organise this." And they did that outstandingly. Les Reed and Sean Harvey are a bit rich for Wrexham's blood, let's be honest. And I think he made a massive role at the start in establishing how he felt a team should play, and then organising in terms of transfer planning which players would suit, because the owners also took quite a long time to appoint Parkinson. He wasn't appointed early in pre-season. And so it was good that I think Parkinson could come in and had been talked through the framework Reed had established of his ideas and players. He already had a list of possible players to look ready for him. Reed had sorted the retained list. And so he did a really good job, I think, in the early stages. He still is contributing. But I think that was his big contribution, was laying the foundations so Parkinson could come in. And I think the only reason Parkinson hasn't had this promotion every year is because he couldn't get all the business done in that what was left of that transfer window. You could see we were halfway there. He brought in a couple of players in the next transfer window, and then you could just see, this is now a team that can win this league. Yeah. But we had a little bit too much. We couldn't quite make up the gap. We finished the season brilliantly, couldn't quite make it, and then had a crazy playoff and lost. You know about high-scoring playoffs anyway, so we got on the wrong end of one, I'm afraid. But so Reed's again. He was good. He was in charge for a bit, wasn't he? With you?
Yeah. So I think similar to his role at Wrexham back in sort of the '90s, the late '90s, and early 2000s. I think he was very much kind of advisory to Alan Kirbishley, and obviously did a very good job with the club then. And then came in as caretaker manager after Ian Dowie got sacked. I think it was about 60 days or something, 3 months, something ridiculous like that. And I don't think it quite worked. And I think he knew that. I think he would hold his hands up and say, "I'm not football manager. I'm advisory. I can do the things off the pitch, but in terms of being a manager, it's not me." And obviously, he's proved that exponentially kind of ever since.
Well, we certainly, there's lots of interesting links, like I said, philosophically and in terms of personnel. I'm just looking forward to even more now I've spoken to you, to be honest with you.
It'll be really good. It'll be a good game.
Yeah, I think so. There's one other thing I'd just finally like to ask you, which is, of course, you mentioned to me beforehand that there's a very important initiative that you're celebrating this Saturday, I believe. And it's through a community work, which again is something that having a trust running us was very important for us. So will you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, so this coming Saturday, it's the annual Red, White and Black Day, which is the Charlton Athletic initiative to celebrate EDI, Black History Month, as well as kind of the diversity that is around Charlton, the area of Greenwich, but also the fan base. Red, White and Black Day, I think it's about 30 to 35 years old. I think it potentially predates Kick It Out and Stand Up to Racism. And it's really born out of the death of Stephen Lawrence, which unfortunately happened in Eltham. And it's the club kind of showing that regardless of where you're from, your background, where you're going, you're supported in your support of Charlton Athletic. and we are all one club. The new motto is all different, all together, all Charlton. And so there's a big celebration on Saturday. There's 500 school kids that will be partaking in a parade. Lots of diverse music from different backgrounds. Offhand, I think we've got a steel pan band playing. Lots of different things to kind of celebrate. Off the back of that, and obviously what will be a great day with Wrexham in town, and obviously Red, White and Black Day, we've also got Mark Goldbridge doing a first, I think it is. He's doing supposedly the world's first football watch-along live stream. So there's kind of 2 or 3 different things going on, which I think has helped the crowd, and obviously should build a really, really good game and a really good day, hopefully for all fans.
Well, like I said, when the fixtures came out, Charlton away was the game I was most looking forward to. I'm really, you've just made me look forward to it all the more.
We're the same. Don't worry.
Yeah. Well, it's an absolute pleasure to speak to you, Sam. It really was, and I really look forward on Saturday to enjoying all the things that are going on around the game, and hopefully I'll enjoy the game as well. But there are bigger things in life than football, just about. So brilliant. Thank you so much, Sam. That was fantastic. So Sam White giving us a lowdown on Charlton Athletic. It's a game we're really looking forward to. We need someone who can step up to the occasion. Just look at this smooth segue I'm going to do now. And a man who often steps up on the big occasion, Lee Jones, of course, a legendary player who we'll be speaking to in a moment. But yeah, I mean, Lee Jones had 4 spells of Wrexham, and he did a cracking job for us, didn't he?
He did, Mark.
I was going,
yeah, he wasn't that great, was he? Yeah.
A fantastic player in, especially 02-03 season where I remember him more so. He was in a real great group of strikers, and probably if we didn't have Trunz, Morel, and if we didn't have them, he would have been the star. But yeah, one of my first ever Wrexham games was I think it was the season before the 02-03 season. I could be wrong. My memory, it was years ago now. I was just a kid. He scored 5 goals against against Cambridge. Yeah, that's my main memory of Lee Jones. I remember walking home with my auntie at the time. Everyone's talking like, "Wow, what a performance!" But probably one of the best performances I've ever seen in a Wrexham shirt. In all fairness, so yeah, 5 goals in the game. It's nothing to be sniffed at.
Equaled the club record for most goals in a league match. Yeah. Remarkable game that was. We were already relegated, sadly, but still.
Yeah.
And he was also, like you said, he got valuable goals in that promotion season. And earlier in his career, he scored that famous goal against West Ham, of course, when we got a draw at Upton Park. Cracking striker, and he gets a move to Liverpool off the back of that. So a great player for Wrexham.
Yeah, and not the tallest of players either. He's a bit of he had a funny gait when he ran as well, but he was an effective striker. But yeah, he wasn't a tall lad. He wasn't a bulky lad. So, for his build, he was an excellent striker for the club and served the club very well, being a local lad as well.
Yeah, very quick. And despite having injuries when he was at Liverpool, he never really lost that pace. And very savvy striker, great movement. Oh, let's hear from the man himself. Here's Lee Jones. Well, Lee, thank you so much for joining us. And we couldn't have a more appropriate player to join us on a sort of historic occasion. You got a few club records that I'll probe you about later on. But I mean, you started off at Lex, didn't you? It's funny. The tradition is players at the end of their career go from Wrexham to Lex. You flipped it on its head. You were a young player and you got picked up by Wrexham.
Yeah, that's right. I mean, to be fair, I've always been a believer of right place and right time. And when I first, when I come through school, we didn't really play much football because we had a rugby teacher, and I'd ended up at Yale College. Didn't do great in my GCSEs, I ended up at Yale College, and I didn't really want to play football. I'd played a lot of grassroots football from the age of 7, 8, whatever it was. And then I think it was the team was actually short, the Yale College team, and there was a teacher called Mr. O.M. Edwards, his name was.
Yeah.
He was a great guy, don't get me wrong, but he was one of these, if he wanted his own way, he always got his own way. And I was in his class, and he wanted me to play for the college team in a cup game at Connors Quay. So I ended up playing. He said, listen, he said, it'll do you good in terms of, your results, shall we say. So I was there because I wanted to be a PE teacher. I thought, I'm not going to be a footballer now because obviously, I hadn't been any trials or anything like that. And then I ended up playing one game against Connors Quay, scored, which meant we were in the next round of the cup. And I ended up playing again at Queensway. And we'd won, I think we won 5-0 and I scored 4. And Cliff Sear happened to be there. And he said that he was speaking to, I was actually playing for Lex at the time as well. And he said he'd been speaking to the groundsman there, Johnny Edwards. And he'd obviously mentioned my name, so he'd come down to watch. And then on the Sunday, I was in a trial game. They invited me down to a trial game in the May, I think it was beginning of May, at the racecourse on the Sunday morning. And there was about 20 in the home team change room, and I was put in the away team. There was a 20 odd in there. And he said, you're all going to play an equal amount of time, and it's just to try, no pressure on any of you. There's one apprenticeship that's up for grabs. So everyone was a little bit, right, okay. So go out onto the pitch, started, and within 5 minutes, Cliff Sear shouted, Lee said, can you come off? So I thought that's it. I'm finished basically. What have I, 5 minutes, I couldn't have done anything really. Not that I could think of anyway. And then as I came off, he said, can you go up and see the manager? He's sat in the director's box. So went up through the back, through the boardroom and stuff in my kit. And Brian Flynn, he offered me the 1 year apprenticeship there and then. He said, I've seen enough in 5 minutes to know that you're going to be a player. You're quick, and we think we can work with you, with the staff, and we think we can improve you as well. So that was basically how it started. So, I was at Lex at the time in sort of, I think it was called the Welsh National League at the time. And then, obviously, I think that was in the May. And I started my first year. It was only a 1 year apprenticeship because I was 17, and it was normally a 2 year apprenticeship. And I'll never forget Brian Flynn. The first thing he said to me when I signed, he said, you're going to be on £35 a week. So I thought, right, okay, great. I wasn't getting paid, so that's fine. And he said, but you've got to put £5 in your pension. And I'm thinking, I'm 17, you're talking about a pension, etc. It's the best advice that anyone's ever given me.
Yeah.
I've always said it to everyone that I've spoken to. But it certainly was, it was a little bit different entry into football, I suppose.
Yeah, it certainly was. I got to take the chances. I'll rarely get this to say I played for OM as well. What a lovely man.
Fantastic guy, wasn't he?
Absolutely tremendous. And the stories he'd tell on the buses down to distant cup matches.
He was a crazy. I mean, he was a crazy guy. And I remember turning up for the Connors Quay game, and I had a really bad head cold. And he said, "Come here, son." And I said, "What are you doing?" And he got this pot of Vicks, the vapor rub, and he went, "Put your tongue out." And I was like, "What? Put your tongue out." And he got the scoop. I mean, you obviously shouldn't do it, but got the scoop, put it on the back of my tongue. He went, "Right, swallow it." He said, "You'll be fine." I was like, "What is he?" He's absolute crack. But I would have done anything that he said because he was like, he was so well respected.
Yeah,
he was a great teacher as well, and obviously, I had a lot to thank him for, I suppose, in the end.
That's brilliant. But don't try that at home, kids.
Definitely don't try that at home. No, it's not, the after effect wasn't great, to be fair.
Yeah. I mean, it didn't take you long to make an impact at Wrexham because we had that weird situation where we were in the Cup Winners' Cup, but they changed the rules. So you had to have, I think, 7 Welsh players, and we didn't have that many Welsh first-teamers. Yeah. Am I right in thinking, though, that I mean, you'll make a big impact in the second round against Man United, but am I right in thinking that in the first round you couldn't play against Lyngby because you were suspended from a Lex game? Is that right? Because that feels weird to me.
Well, it was actually the last game of the season before I came and so when I played in the trial game, I'd obviously gone back to Lex after that. I think there was like 2 or 3 games left at the end of the season, and then I remember playing the last game of the season. I got I think I got sent off for two bookings, whatever it was. And then you just don't think anything about it. Obviously signed for Wrexham. And then I remember Brian Flynn calling me in the morning, and he said, we've got a bit of a problem. And I said, because I was going to be in the squad, I knew I was going to be on the bench. He said, we've got a bit of a problem. I said, what's that? He said, oh, the secretary, Mr. Rhodes, just said that you're suspended. And I was like, why would I be suspended? He said, you got sent off at the end of last season. I said, yeah, but that was for Lex. I said, that's not for any. He went, no, it carries on. So I missed. So I remember we drew 0-0 at home against Lyngby. And then I remember I was in the squad then for the second game, and we all obviously went over to Lyngby, and obviously we'd worked on this free kick for all week. Brian Flynn was taking it, John Bowden was spinning behind, and obviously then head it across, and Chris Armstrong was, and we did it loads of times in training, never came off. And then we got this free kick, and all the lads on there, because it was myself and all the apprentices like Craig Knight, Kev Jones, Richie Lawton. We were all on the side and thinking, it's never going to work. And we've obviously ended up scoring it. And then the rest, I suppose, history. It was a good night in Denmark that night, put it that way. For 7 or 8 young lads who'd never sort of really been abroad before. Yeah, it was a really good night.
And that must have been an amazing experience. But then to get Man United in the next round, wow, that must be really crazy.
That was unbelievable. Yeah, I mean, we obviously got drawn against them, and we obviously, I think we were in Old Trafford the first leg.
Yeah,
Was it? I think 3-0 we got beat.
3-0, yeah.
3-0, and then but just walk. I mean, I used to obviously be a big Man United fan, obviously before I went to Liverpool, and to just like see this. I mean, the stadium's obviously grown a lot to what it is now, but the stadium was fantastic, and you walked on the pitch and you could see the Paul Ince, all the big hitters, if you like, for Man U, Gary Pallister, Steve Bruce, and I was like, just in awe of them, really. And we were sat on the side, and the game just flew by really quick. I remember Brian Flynn saying to us, there was like 3 of us, go and get warmed up. And I was just, I remember running down the touchline, and I just wasn't even thinking about it. I was looking around at the stands; they were just so big. And it was just, it was so really surreal, really. And then obviously, we came back home, and then I got my chance for my debut.
That must have been incredible coming on against United, and you certainly didn't look phased by it because you nearly scored with a brilliant long range effort.
Yeah, I remember to this day. So we trained in the morning at the Wrexham Rugby Club.
Yeah. So
as you probably know that we used to get changed at the racecourse. We'd run to the rugby club and then run back after training, and that was exactly the same on the day of the game. But this time we were staying at Rossett Hall. We had to stay, I think, local-ish to the stadium. So again, it was a new thing for me, staying over in a hotel, because it never happened before. And then in the morning, we were training, and the gaffer named the team, and Kev Jones said to me, he said, "You're in the team." I said, "What?" He said, "You're playing. You're starting tonight." I said, "No." I said, I'm not. He said, "He said your name," but we didn't really do any tactical stuff at the time, and it wasn't until so we trained for about half an hour, and then after training, Joey, Kevin, and the gaffer pulled me to one side. He said, "Just let you know, you are starting tonight. So make sure you go back and get yourself a good afternoon's sleep." He said, "You're going to need it." He said, "We didn't tell you last night because we thought you'd be really nervous and you probably wouldn't have slept last night." He said, "But you're starting tonight." And then obviously, I mean, I wasn't going to get any sleep from then. So all afternoon, just obviously lying awake and just thinking about the game. And I'm just coming out at the racecourse. I'd seen the racecourse busy before, maybe 5,000-6,000 people, but I think that night there was about 14,000-15,000. The cop was absolutely chock-a-block, and again, just a real surreal experience to come onto the pitch. And I remember going out for the warm up. I didn't want to come back in. It was just absolute buzzing. It was the best, And it was obviously boyhood club. Playing for my hometown club, that was the only club that I'd ever wanted to really play for. It was just a fantastic experience, and it sort of grew from there, really.
And I got to go back though. I remember being so excited at the game. That effort that you had from very long range that nearly went in. Wow, how must that have felt when it's soaring through your head? You're thinking, "Oh, I've connected with that."
Yeah, to be honest, yeah, and that was another thing. I mean, we were playing, and I spoke to many people about this. When we were playing against Man United, it was huge in terms of the way they spoke to each other. So us as Wrexham players, I was obviously brought up with Wrexham and Joey, and everyone used to put their arm around you. You never used to really get a rollicking or anything. It was, if you did something not great, then Joey or someone would shout, "Come on, Lee, come on, you need to be better at that." Whereas when we played against Man United, if Steve Bruce or Gary Pallister or whoever it was misplaced a pass, they absolutely hammered each other. And this was going on through the whole game. And then obviously in the second half, I've had that shot, and I think Les Seeley's tipped it over for a corner, and I've gone and stood by the goalkeeper, and I can't really say what he said to me because it was like expletive. And I looked at him and I thought, is he joking? But he was flat serious. I thought to myself, oh no, he's being deadly serious. But that's the way they used to speak to each other. And it was only when I actually went to Liverpool that I realised that that's how the top players get the best out of each other. They don't necessarily put an arm around you. They absolutely hammer you, which works to some effect, I suppose, with some players, but it doesn't with others. So, but big difference.
That whole demanding standards.
Oh yeah, everything is like demanding. Yeah, it is.
It
is.
I mean, that Brian Flynn around that time clearly seemed to be bringing through young players, giving them their opportunity. You were a bit younger, I would say, than the sort of ones I'm thinking of, like the hardcore of it, like Hardy and Connolly, Watkin, people like that. But it must have been an interesting sort of environment to be in because you've got a lot of players who aren't that much older than you. It's quite a sort of youthful setup. Yeah,
so when I was an apprentice, I was cleaning Wayne Phillips's boots and Steve Watkins' boots. And so in the team, there's obviously Gareth Owen, Stevie, Wayne Phillips, and then obviously, coming through with the likes of myself, and then behind us was the likes of Jonathan Cross, Dave Brammer, them kind of players. So I think obviously the year that we ended up bottom of the league, I think that was massive for the football club in terms of what it allowed the gaffer to do. I think his philosophy was always to bring in young players, but it allowed him to bring in probably 8 or 9 in one go rather than 1 or 2, which I think generally would have done. So it was a case that we knew we were going to lose. Well, we didn't know we were going to lose every week, but we were obviously, we had a rough idea that we weren't going to be very successful that season, but it would put us in good stead because then we'd all played roughly 20, 30 games. Then obviously the year after, we've ended up with a not a bad cup run and a good cup result. So it was good in terms of just allowing us to go and play. And the good thing with there was the gaffer, Kev, and Joey, and then in behind we had Cliff Sear, Brian Prandall, and Idris Price. And they never put any pressure on you in terms of and it was always go out and enjoy it. Just go and play football, go and enjoy it. There's no restrictions, there's no pressure on you. Just go and enjoy the game. Play with a smile on your face. And that was all we had really for 12 months in terms of we were getting beat most weeks. The victories tasted really, really good because they didn't come around that often. And the gaffer used to say, take this feeling because this is the feeling that you want every week. You don't want the feeling of getting beat. So obviously the season after it stood us in good stead.
And just to clarify for anyone listening who isn't aware of it as well, what had happened was Aldershot dropped out the league. So we knew going into that season nobody would get relegated. Very far-sighted by the club to allow Brian Flynn his head, essentially saying, let's forget about results for a year because we're building for the future. It must have been good as well, Flynn being a player manager, having him there as well. And I remember I always used to feel like most teams in sort of 4th division, 3rd division, higher up, tended to be a bit obvious. Everyone was playing like 4-4-2, 4-3-3 styles of play. There wasn't many teams that really prioritized possession. And then Brian Flynn would come up with really interesting ideas that, you look at them now and you think, these are quite modern. The one that sticks in my head was him playing you and Dave O'Gorman as like split strikers. And then he's in the hole in between. And you think, well, that's not a guy who's going to be bursting between the strikers. But it worked because he used the ball so well. And there was a game, I can't for the life remember who it was against, but they were top of the league. and we beat him 2-0. Flynn scored both because he was just using the space that you and Dave are making for him.
Yeah.
I remember sitting there thinking, we're bottom of the league, but this is exciting. We're going somewhere here.
Yeah, he was very innovative, to be fair, the gaffer. And I think, going back to what the staff were like, for me, it was certainly being a centre forward. I couldn't have got any better tuition than Kev Reeves. He was £1 million centre forward from Man City.
Yeah.
Defenders were with, their go-to was Joey, the highest amount caps for Wales. And obviously what a guy Joey was, or is, should I say. And then and all the midfielders went to see Brian Flynn.
Yeah.
So we all had somebody to go to that we knew could improve our game. But yeah, I remember obviously playing with Dave O'Gorman, and we were playing sort of split strikers. And I remember when we brought in Carl Connolly, we only ever played with one winger. So we would play sort of 4-4 or 4-3. Carl would be our one winger and two up front. And people would say, "Why aren't you playing two wingers?" But no, if you did it, people would say, "Well, yeah, we call it half cocked if you like," because Carl was on the left hand side, but. People are doing that now, and they're saying, "Well, yeah, he's only playing with one winger," and this we were doing it years ago, And, the false nine. Brian Flynn was a false nine.
Yeah,
that's the actual position he was playing in. But he was innovative in terms of what he used to do, and he used to, the free kick, for instance, to go back to at Lingby. He would watch certainly bits and pieces of what limited sort of footage he would get back then, and try and work it with us. And obviously some things did work and some things didn't. But, in terms of a staff, you could, in my opinion, and I'm probably heavily biased here, they were as good as they are as good as anything I've certainly worked with, and I've obviously played at a decent level as well, so because they've got that sort of empathy with you in terms of they want you to get better, but they know their stuff.
Yeah,
don't get me wrong. When they want to come down on you hard, they can do. Or they certainly did at times.
Yeah. Well, that one winger formation now they call it an asymmetric 4-3-3, wouldn't they? But in those days, it was just how Wrexham did it.
Just how we did it. Yeah. It's just we did it. We used to kick. People would get it and kick the diagonal ball onto Carl Connolly. Carl Connolly would run inside, flick it inside, and then it would be whoever's playing in front. Myself, Chris Armstrong, Dave O'Gorman, whoever it was, Stevie Watkin, Gary Bennett when he was there, they would just make their run off timing off Carl Connolly. People couldn't defend it. Yeah. It was again, it was another thing that Brian Flynn, thought up.
Spare thought, of course, for that poor right-sided midfielder who has to do two people's jobs, but we'll gloss over that.
You want to be that guy, to be fair.
You mentioned as well then about trying to pick up bits of footage. And of course, there wasn't much data analysis then, if any, which I always thought was what allowed John Bowden to constantly do the same trick and get past people, because he had that same trick, didn't he, when he drawn to the corner flag and then roll them.
Yeah.
I think in a modern day, everyone knows that now, but he constantly was able to get away with it.
It did definitely have its positives and its negatives, to be fair, because I mean, obviously the amount of detail that clubs and teams go into now to nullify certain players. There are certain players that you can't nullify, the likes of Messi and Ronaldo, and they always find solutions. But certainly down at the lower levels, like you say, one player might have a trick, and if you go and stand on his left hand side, he can't do it. So back then, you're right. John Bowden used to do that quite often. But now, Mark Sartori, for instance, we always used to have a joke with Mark Sartori. He had the biggest step over in the world. His legs were so long, but his step over, we used to say, nearly take the floodlights out at Wrexham. But now, people would look at that and go, well, he can't do that because we wouldn't let him do it. So, yeah, you're right. Analysis has got a big part to play now, I think.
Sartori, I always remember as well, I've never seen a centre-back try to run the ball out for a goal kick from so far out. Most centre-backs, if you're about 6 yards from the goal line, you'll think, I can protect this. He'd do it from about 25 yards. Oh, no, maybe that's exaggerating. Edge of the box. Just be there, making himself big and running it back. Yeah.
You couldn't get round him. He was absolutely huge. He was absolutely huge, Carlo, to be fair.
Yeah.
Massive guy.
Yeah. Well, the next season, of course, we're mid-table. Like you said, those players who've come through have really bedded themselves in well. And then we've got a little matter of a cup run, which made quite a difference. I mean, remarkable as well. And for you, you're still a very young player. But goodness me, I mean, that must have been incredible.
It was, yeah. Obviously, I think we played. I think Winsford. I think in the first.
Yeah.
Was it Winsford? I think we beat Winsford 5. I think it was.
Yeah.
Colwyn Bay. It was Colwyn Bay one as well.
Was it Telford next? I may be getting mixed up. I think it was Telford's 1-0.
It was. Yeah, Telford 1-0. Then it was Winsford. I think it was, and then I think we drew. Was it
Arsenal? Whoever they were.
Yeah, Arsenal. Yeah.
I vaguely remember that game.
Yeah, I mean, I was gutted, to be fair, because I'd played in the sort of 6 games leading up to Arsenal, and I'd played in a game at Hereford away, and I got a whack on my hip, and then that was on the Saturday, and then obviously went and had some treatment, and I thought I'll be okay. It was just a kick, but it never sort of improved all week. So I remember myself and we'd signed Mel Pedgick, but Pedge was cut-tied. So myself and Mel Pedgick were up in the stands watching the game, and obviously, you know, we're watching it and looking at the first half, and we're thinking, oh my God, if we come away from here today and we've only lost 6 or 7, then we've done great.
Yeah.
At half time, we're thinking, you know, they'd absolutely battered us. We'd had a couple of half chances, but we felt as though, you know, we should have been out dead and buried out the game. But then, obviously, the second half, Mickey's put that one, and myself and Mel, we were sat in the Yale stand, but we were sat the town end, but we were literally right in line with Mickey and the shot that went in. And I remember looking at Pedge and saying, "Oh my God, have you ever played at Highbury?" He was like, "No." I said, "Oh God, can't, you know, we're going to be going to Highbury."
Yeah.
And then Stevie Watkins, and I just don't think I've ever felt emotion like it, to be fair. It was just, and then we were stood in the stand, and it was just, I remember the final whistle going, and I remember looking back down on the pitch, and you couldn't see the pitch.
Yeah.
There were that many fans on it. It was almost like we'd won the World Cup or won the FA Cup, never mind just beat Arsenal. And again, we were bottom of the league, you know, the season before. They'd won the league the season before, so the gulf in class and you know, couldn't have been any bigger. So I still, even if I know I was sort of involved in it, I still think it's probably the biggest cup upset in FA Cup history, in my opinion.
Yeah.
You know, just because the gulf in class. So, but yeah, it was a memorable night. Put it that, I know it was a memorable night in Wrexham after that.
And memorable for you the next round, because you are fit and able to play at West Ham.
Yeah.
And I mean, we hadn't won away for something like 18 months. It was, so us going to a top level team didn't look promising, but I mean, we really stepped up to that occasion. It was a hell of a performance, wasn't it?
I just remember the fans, they were unbelievable that day. You know, we came out for a warm-up, and the noise from our end. I mean, there wasn't many West Ham fans in the stadium at the time when we were warming up, but the noise from behind the goal and certainly up on the upper tier was just incredible. You know, and you almost felt sort of, you know, we could do something here today. And then obviously, I was on the bench, and we'd spent a number of days, if you like, doing set pieces, and because they had a big threat from corners. And I remember we conceded. Certainly, I think the first one was it might have been Julian Dix's header. I can't think who it was. Julian or Colin Foss, one of the two. I can't think. But we conceded from a corner, and then obviously I think Wayne scored, and then they'd made it 2-1, and then Brian Flynn, with about 10-15 minutes to go, he said, "Go and get warmed up." And I remember running into the corner, and the West Ham ground, literally the touchline was about 3 yards away. If you were stood next to the linesman, you were literally in the crowd.
Yeah.
I remember being stood in the corner, and I got pelted with food. They were spitting on me. They all sorts. And I just thought, I just want to get on. I need to get on and score.
Yeah.
And then I got the call. Brian Flynn said, his words were, "Just go on and score a goal. So you don't have to do anything else." He said, "Just go on, score a goal." Obviously, doesn't always work out that way, but you know, Gareth Owen's pass was unbelievable. As soon as Gaz picked up the ball, because I'd obviously worked with Gaz for 12, 18 months prior to that, and I always knew that he had a long-range pass in his locker. I still rib him a little bit that it was meant for Stevie Watkins, and he overhit it, and I got on the end of it and made it look a decent pass. But you know, as soon as Gaz got the ball, he picked his head up. I just knew that I had to run, because I thought it'll end up at my feet, and obviously it did. But the time seemed to be an eternity between the time that I controlled the ball and it actually hit the back of the net. I remember it sort of caught me halfway up the shin, and it bobbled under McCloskey's arm. And I think if I'd have hit it well, he'd have saved it. But because it bobbled and I hit it not great, it trickled, and I just remember I knew it was going in because I could see the line of the ball going inside the post, but it just seemed to take for ages, forever to go in. But it was, and that was obviously a surreal moment because obviously the fans in the behind the goal, and obviously they're all the fence, and they were all pressed against the fence, and arms and legs and all sorts going. It was unbelievable. Yeah, it was very surreal.
Well, your description of it is extremely evocative and is identical to what I experienced, except for one crucial detail. I was in amongst those fans. Right. I was in the side stand, bang on the goal line.
Okay.
So I when that ball's trickling, I have no chance of seeing whether it's going in or wide.
Going in or not.
And you look like you're following it in, and I'm thinking, oh, you can see. You must be thinking it's hitting the post or something. Yeah. But thankfully, so for me, that moment lasted for an eternity. And when it rolled in that bottom corner, oh my God, that was good.
Yeah,
fantastic.
Yeah, I mean, I've looked back at it loads of times.
Yeah,
and obviously with experience, I always think now, would I have done anything different? Would I have took it round the keeper? Would I have tried to dink it over the keeper? But and obviously the pitches back then weren't great, and you can actually see the ball bobbling as it's coming, and I think that's why it's hit me halfway up the shin.
Yeah.
And but yeah, it was it was an unbelievable moment, and from where you were sat, my parents were sat directly above you.
Oh, right.
And I remember looking up to my parents, seeing my parents when I'd scored. So it was a great moment, to be fair.
Oh wow, that's amazing, isn't it?
Yeah.
I mean, that was very much your strength as well, wasn't it? You had such pace. Yeah. You're looking at midfielders and reading whether they're going to play it in, and then running clear. It must have. I used to always think that young players might be nervous. Joe Jacob, who was a great player for Chester and Burnley, who used to do the PA data at the racecourse, did a lot of youth coaching. And he used to put me straight and say, no, young lads are the cockiest because they've been the best player in all their teams. So they're expecting everything. But I mean, regardless of that, you're at 18 or something like that, and you're running in on Ludek McCloskey, who's a big guy and a good keeper.
Yeah.
And in a big first division stadium, I mean, keeping your cool must be important in those situations that you were seeking to get into. And also, I mean, that sort of one as well. You got a long time to think about it, which maybe isn't the best thing to have,
Yeah. I think sometimes, different goals, sometimes it's a snapshot and it goes in within like a second. But certainly, I mean, it's quite strange so when Gaz passed the ball, as soon as I took my touch, it felt like it was just me and Ludek McCloskey and nothing else. And I knew as soon as I took my first touch that the defender, I think Tim Breaker, I knew that he couldn't bring me down because I was across him and I was away from him. And then it was just a case of having to beat the goalkeeper. But it just felt like, everything's sort of really quiet. You don't hear anything. And you're just trying to concentrate. And as I say, I was just trying to concentrate on trying to get a good contact on the ball. And it was probably one of the worst contacts that I've ever got on a football. It was probably the best shot. I've hit loads of shots that have been sweeter than that, and the keeper saved it, or it's hit the post or the bar or whatever it looks like, gone wide. But I think it was just the fact that I didn't hit it great, that it actually went in the corner. I think if I'd have probably hit it true, he'd have probably saved it, and we wouldn't probably be talking about anything now. But yeah, it was a really good moment.
And then you say that Breaker couldn't foul you. Well, he obviously, by the replay, changed his mind, because in the replay, famously, of course, is that, I mean, absolute textbook professional foul that the referee doesn't send him off for, which is crucial in the context of the game, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, I think it was 0-0 as well at the time, wasn't it? And Carl's gone through. And to be honest, as soon as he made the foul, I remember Kev Reeves turning to Joey and he said he's off. And we all thought, he was straight through. And the first thing we looked, and the rules have changed a little bit since then. If there's any other players in the vicinity, they might think that he's going to get. But at the time, if it was like a professional foul, which it was, you were straight red. And when he pulled the yellow card out, everyone was like, how was he only given him a yellow card for that? And the disappointing thing was, like I said to you a couple of minutes ago, we worked on defending set pieces. from corners. So we conceded 2 in the first leg, and then the pit in between that Saturday and the replay, we didn't really train. We just defended set pieces, and we didn't concede from any. And it was really frustrating that when they had the corner, I think Vince has come out to punch it, and Colin Foster's ended heading into an open goal. Yeah. And that was a really disappointing. They hadn't really worked for any of their goals. I think if they'd have scored, they'd have cut us open, and they'd have scored them, or someone's put it in the top corner. It was the fact that we'd conceded from a corner, and we'd obviously had that chance that we thought Tim Breaker could have got sent off. We'd have possibly gone on and won the game. You never know, but we'd have certainly been in the game a lot longer. Yeah. So that was disappointing. That was a disappointing night, that.
Absolutely. And it is, an astonishing decision not to send him off, regardless of how the rules may or not have changed. I mean, Carl is just all on his own in their half. And
exactly. Well, he gets a shot off. He gets a shot on goal, and it's like, well, if you can get a shot off on goal, then you should be sent off.
It's a goal-scoring opportunity, isn't it? Yeah.
Exactly, yeah. So it was really disappointing that, I don't think the referee helped us that night.
No, true enough. After that game, you were really in scorching form as well. I mean, am I being simplistic to think that scoring a goal like the one at West Ham fills you with even more confidence, or is it just, all strikers go through phases where the ball's dropping nicely for them?
Yeah, I think a bit of both. I think I was a player that when I used to score in batches, and I would score in maybe 5 or 6 games, and I possibly wouldn't score for another 3 or 4 games. I wasn't one of these players who probably scored 1 a game, or I'd score a couple, or however it sort of worked out. But certainly when you've scored against a team like West Ham, your confidence obviously grows, and But again, going back to the staff, to Brian, to Joey, to BP, Eddie, Cliff, they gave you the belief. So they never ever said to me, "Oh, you're the best player," but they would say, "Oh, you've done great there, but you can do better than that." And that's how they always were. There was always encouragement, and you always the gaffer made you go out feeling that you were already the best player, even though he'd never said it to you. I actually felt that I was the best player on the pitch, even though I knew I wasn't. So he had that way with all the players to make them feel that, no pressure, just go out and play, go and enjoy it. You're the best player. You'll score today. And he always used to say to me before we went out, he said, "You'll score today." Didn't always come off, but I then used to go on the pitch thinking, "I'm going to score today." So then it gave me a little bit more belief as well. So it was, I did it some form straight after that. They definitely came in batches, I think, rather than over a prolonged period.
Yeah. And what you're saying there about their man management approach goes back to what you said before, doesn't it? Really, that people who are just having a go at everyone. Okay, that can keep people on their toes, but they're also personalities you don't need that. And when you said it before, I was thinking of Brian Clough, because famously seen as a great motivator. But I also remember Gary Megson going there for a lot of money, and him saying afterwards that Clough broke him because he was the sort of bloke who he needed an arm around the shoulder, and Clough was just constantly insulting him, and it just broke him, and he couldn't perform there. But the flexibility of those experienced guys you were working under, it says a lot about how good they were in those sort of situations.
Yeah, they were fantastic, and as I said, we always seemed to have a good cop, bad cop. So the gaffer never really came in and tore a strip off you. But if you weren't playing great, then Joey would he wouldn't hammer you, but he was in a roundabout way say it's not good enough. Yeah. We'd been brought up certainly that way already, because Brian Prandtl was the one who always used to say, put his arm around you. Idris Price would always be the one who used to get under your skin, and you knew that if you impressed Iddy, then you would be okay. But and I took this saying all the way through my career. Brian Prandtl used to say it to me and to all the young lads. He said, "Never forget, a pat on the back is only 6 inches away from a kick in the arse." And I took that with me all through my career. He said, "So never get too high when they give you a pat on the back, and never get too low when they kick you up the backside." Yeah. And I was like, yeah, it's so true that, if you can get through your career, you've got to have highs and lows. I know that. But if you can level yourself off, no matter what you're doing, then obviously you'll never get too high and you'll never be too low. So that's one of the things I've always took with me throughout my career, to be fair.
Yeah, Lee Jones, absolute legend and top bloke as well. Fantastic. And I actually went in to speak to him on the basis that we talk about like his entire career, but he's so interesting. We end up just talking about the first spell. So he's promised he'll come back and fill us in on later developments as well. But a great player Lee was. And next week as well, by the way, we have an interview with a man who kept out Porto, Stuart Parker, the keeper in 1984, who was on that remarkable European run when we beat Porto and then were very unfortunate against Roma. So, yeah, that'll be a fun one as well. Chaps, it's been great coming back for another Dragonheart. No, I mean the very first Final Whistle Weekly. It's been fun, isn't it? Again, an awkward silence.
You know what? You can tell we're a bit rusty, can't you? It's almost as if it's our first ever podcast called the Final Whistle Weekly.
You would think, wouldn't you? Yeah. You should get Andy off as well. I feel bad about that.
Well, I've got to say, guys, I'm so happy to be back doing some sort of content. It's been long overdue. You know, we've had a few things we've all been a lot busy, so hopefully definitely it's going to be a regular thing that we're going to be all doing again. So I'm extremely excited to be speaking to you guys once a week for an hour. You know what I mean? It's something we definitely need to do again, isn't it?
That's his limit. Once a week for an hour is all he's got. Unfortunately, me and Chay no longer have a brother relationship because his hour that he allots to me usually has now been taken.
and you're very lucky, Chay, to be speaking to me once a week for an hour, because that conversation with me for that length of time costs a fortune on OnlyFans. Did I say that or did I think it? I'm going to Google OnlyFans and have a shot now.
I don't know.
And on that bombshell, come on, Wrexham, let's get 2 wins this weekend and, really set ourselves up. Oh, there's one thing to forget. I forgot. I said halfway through last season, I got a bottle of Gers and I said I was going to age it and then we'd share it when we got promoted next. And then Wrexham went and spoiled it all by doing something stupid like get promoted. So we'll have to be doing one of these in person soon, simply so we can all have a thimble full of this rather small bottle of fancy Belgian beer.
Hey, you don't have to invite me twice for that, Mark.
Fair play. Nice one. Might get an extra me. Discount rates for mates. Right. So,
reiterate what Chay said. It's great to see you guys again and to actually get together like this and do this once a week. It's fantastic.
Yeah. Secretly, I hated it. I'm only kidding.
Bring you down to earth. You mix it with the rabble now, Mark. So
I know it's awful, you know.
Any don't good worry. For you? Yeah,
I've kept a lot of hand gel. I'm going to give myself a good rub down when we go off. Right, let's Scarborough, everybody. Thank you, everyone, for watching or listening or having it on in the background while you were arguing with somebody closely related to you. This has been Final Whistle Weekly.